Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your host, James Avramenko, back once again with a brand new interview. This week, I welcome to the show comedian and host of my favorite online game show, Codenames Live, the one and only Tim Riel. Tim and I discussed pebbling memes as a love language, how Boy Meets World has poisoned our perception of friendship, and how Tim has structured his week to create a dynamic community through his show. All this and so much more, but let's get into it. So lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy my interview with Tim Riel here on Friendless. So yeah, why don't we start actually kind of at Codenames, because that is, how we cross paths. Former guest of the show, Brian Nothling, invited me randomly onto this game show. He's like, "Hey, I'm supposed to bring someone on who I know to be a guest on the show."
Sorry, no, that's wrong. He needs to bring somebody he loves and adores, James.
Yeah, I didn't want to speak for him, but I trust that is how he feels about me. If only because that's how I feel about him. So I'm just trying to be, right. But I think my what's it called? My self-conscious voice came into play there. You're right.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that too, because I think I should probably preface before we get into any of details and stuff. Over the last couple of days, I've realized this is my nightmare. I am very. I came into this and I'm like, this is going to be really uncomfortable for me.
Okay.
Because it's the first. Because it's like sitting down and trying to think about friendship. I've got a I've got a rocky history with friendship, and so it's I'm terrified. So it's gonna be fun.
I love that. And I mean, I don't love that you have a rocky history. I love that you are feeling comfortable to talk about it, right? And I think this is something that I've really seen over I've been doing this almost 7 years now. And I have my own picadillos about friendship, and in talking to everyone that I have throughout the years, I've really come to recognize that we're so much more we have such more similar experiences than separating experiences, and so many more people feel that than I think are willing to admit, or necessarily maybe they're willing to admit it, but they're never given the space to talk about it, right? And I think that that's very much what I'm trying to kind of mold this show into, is let's talk about how fucking weird it is to make friends as an adult and be like, I have 30, how old am I now? 37 years of fucking friendship trauma, will you be my friend and not fuck me up again,
Yeah.
But thank you for being brave, because you're such a fabulous host on things that it's fun to kind of reverse the roles, right? But I want to start at something lighter. We're talking about Codenames, and I'd like to kind of hear a bit of the genesis of the show, because I'd never even heard of it before getting invited onto the show. I'd never played it.
That's a big issue for us. Yeah.
But it turns out that there's this huge community behind it. It's a really popular game. And so I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit about the formation of the show and what got you to where you are now.
I'm a board gamer and also a comedian, and so as you know, when you are a performer and a comedian, whenever you show up at a venue and you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yep.
You're always trying to figure out what show can I produce that's going to be different from other people, and because we were into board games, Codenames was just one of those games that was just really easy to play and really fun to play. And at one point, somebody had told me, who was also into board games, and I was like, "Oh, we love playing Codenames. You should come over and play Codenames." And they were like, "I hate Codenames."
Oh, shit.
And we're like, "What do you mean you hate Codenames?" And they're like, you just sit there silently staring at cards all night." And I'm like, "Oh, bro, you are not playing properly." And then when he came over and we played the way we play, he was like, "You were right. This is a lot more fun." And then I think I had a show the next night, and I was just like, how do I bring that experience here? And so we've been brainstorming and trying to figure out how to do a live experience of Codenames and turn it into a show. And then fortunately, the world ended, and we all had to stream from home. we all had to live at home and never leave. And my buddy Evan said, one of the one of my friends, Evan
Yeah.
Abrams, he was like, "You can turn that show into something on stream. You should stream it." And we're not going to get into the full genesis of things because I can talk about Codenames forever.
Sure.
But we eventually turned it into a show, and the original idea was me and four of my comedian friends. We would play every Thursday night. That's the thing. We would set ourselves up because again, you weren't allowed to leave. You couldn't even go grocery shopping at this point.
Yeah.
And so we're just like every Thursday, we're gonna hang out and we're gonna play this game. And then after the first one, I was like, okay, I like the concept. So let's. I kept trying to mold it into a show, and I'm like, okay, let's get to 6, and then we can. I can package it and maybe pitch it for like a TV pilot or something. We can do something with it, um, but it's a word game, so 6 episodes. That's probably going to be the top. There's no way you can do more than 6 episodes about words, and then not only did we get past 6, but it got to the point where other comedian friends were like, "Oh, I want to be on your Codename show." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, you can't because it's those 4 guys and me.
Yeah.
It's our thing and you can't have it." uh, but of course I was like feeling bad because I'm like, "Oh, I like those people too. I'd like to
Yeah.
I hope one of my 4 friends doesn't want to do it next week so I can bring someone else in."
Yep.
Uh, but then the people watching on stream, the people in the chat, they were like, "You've got to do this more than once a week. One, because it's fun, and two, because there's nothing else going on. We're stuck at home. Please entertain us."
Yep. Yep.
And it was the first time where anything I had been doing. I've been doing comedy for a while, sketch, acting, all that other stuff, and it was the first time where something that I was part of, let alone that I created, but something that I was part of was something that people were like, "You must give us more."
Mm.
And as an entertainer, it's been what I've wanted my entire life was to make something and have people go, "Could I have more of the thing you make?" Uh, and so I got very excited with that. And then I was like, well, this is going to kill 2 birds with one stone.
Mhm.
I'm going to set up a second show on Mondays. None of the main cast is going to be on that show, which I think they're happy about too, because already once a week they're dedicated to this. I couldn't possibly ask them to dedicate a second day. But on the Monday show, I could bring the people that were asking to be on the show and all my other friends. And so I started reaching out to my other friends, said, "Do you want to do the Monday show?" And the other thing is, again, when you produce shows, when you've been in this industry long enough, you know that the hardest thing in the world is to book people and have them show up.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was like, I cannot book 4 guests. It's not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to book 2 guests.
Mm.
And those 2 guests are going to bring their own friends. And
Mhm.
what that's going to do is, one, I'm not going to have to book those other 2 people. Somebody else is
Mhm.
going to do the legwork for me. 2, both of those people are going to be more comfortable on screen with each other. So we're going to get more moments out of them. And 3, everyone's going to be scared to cancel. Because the person I invited can't cancel now because they've invited somebody. And
Yeah.
the person they invited doesn't want to disappoint them by canceling. And so,
Yeah.
in the history of Codenames, I've had 1 cancellation, and it has been for a paying gig. It wasn't because they didn't want to.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's where that started from. It's like you invite somebody you love and adore and want to spend a couple of hours with,
Yeah.
and then from there, anybody who dug the show thought it was fun that we clicked with, we invite them to a secret Codenames group on Facebook, and we ask them to come back and bring somebody they love and adore, and then we get that chain, and it's just a chain of people's favorite people.
That's the other side of it too that I was thinking. I was like, it's such a brilliant kind of like um organic growth model too, because you're
Yeah.
then breaking into these new circles who wouldn't have initially heard about it, But
We've reached some really weird places.
yeah.
Some of my favorite ones. Like we've had Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The
Mm.
Martian.
Mhm.
He's been on the show. We got through there.
That's
We've had a couple
amazing.
of musicians I like. We've had Tatiana Maslany. So it's like I have an Emmy award winning Marvel actress. She's been on the show.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
it's
Wow.
insane, and it all like it goes from nothing to some like. because that was um, my buddy Mark Street, who works for the Dice Tower. He does the preview stuff for board game stuff. He brought Kevin Sussman from The Big Bang Theory, and then
Jesus.
Kevin, brought Brendan Hines, and then Brendan brought Tatiana because they're married,
Yep.
and then Tatiana brought Nug, and that's how Nug came. And then the my favorite thing, and it's in the blurb for the Codenamers group.
Yeah.
It's this isn't for like this is yes, it'll be a resource for me to be like, hey, anybody want to come back on the show?
Yeah.
But for me, one of the most important things, because it's something that I always struggle with. I don't like reaching out to people because I have this whole idea of who the fuck am I, and I'm wasting their time by even asking for anything.
Yep. Yep.
And so I don't like that situation because I don't like cold calls because
Hmm.
if you just go to someone, hey, can you do my thing? It's like,
Hmm.
that's, first of all, it's rude. And second of all, it's like, why just no, you should have a reason to contact someone other than please do me a favor.
Well, and something to offer, right? That's something
Yeah.
that's something I learned through the show. It's also something I always teach. I in my day job I teach like career planning and upskilling and project management, all these different things with tech students. And I always tell them like, don't reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, do something for me, right?
Yeah.
You reach out and say like, hey, let's connect, and here's something you could get out of it. Like even
Yeah.
even even generous people, like you can use greed for good. There's like a healthy greed in a way of like it's
Yeah.
reciprocal.
Oh, we can get into the philosophy of selfishness if you want. I
Mhm.
got a lot of opinions on selfishness.
No,
I think the whole world runs on selfishness.
of course.
It's the easiest. People are like, "Oh, that person's selfless." I'm like, "No, yeah, he had a selfish reason for doing that."
Always.
But yeah. Anyway, don't want to get too far.
We'll get into that. We'll get into
We'll
that
get
in the friendship
yeah.
stuff. That's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, the whole point of the Codenames group was, if there's somebody in here that you'd like to meet, you're interested in, or for whatever reason that you want to make some kind of connection,
Mhm.
uh, I this is now a place where you can find them, you can connect to them, and you can open with, "Hey, I'm a big fan of yours. I've also done Tim's stupid thing. You want
Right.
to talk about Tim's stupid thing with me?" And then you make that connection where you're just like, wasn't it weird to do Codenames? Isn't it cool? What an
Yes.
interesting show. I had a good time. What did you lose? Did you hit any assassins? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
eventually you build the bond, and then you go like, hey, I'll be in San Diego this weekend. Did you want to grab a coffee? That type of thing.
I need to start exploiting this chat thread more. I didn't even realize that was like a
Yeah,
backdoor
you can go
entry.
into the Codenamers group and just look at the list of people that are part of the group, and then just be like, "Oh, this person's really cool," and like, "Hey, just reaching out.
Yeah.
I know you might not know me, but I've done Codenames, and if Tim thinks you're cool, then you must be cool."
So this really leads into one of the core questions of this show. I usually have this reverse, but I think this leads really nicely into this question of community, right? And this idea
Mhm.
of I always see it as like the friend is the one-on-one, and we'll get deeper into the friends in a minute, but like the community part is like, how do you build more than one connection? I've gone through stages in my life where I've had what I felt like was a big community, and then I've gone through stages where it's like my community is like the stuffed animals on my bed and like one friend who I call crying every day for 2 weeks, until they get tired of me, right? And I'm wondering, what kind of effect did your sort of like whether it was a desire or your pursuit of or whatever it was, were you thinking about community building as you were building out this show, or did it kind of happen organically?
It was more organic because I do not feel I'm a very good community builder.
Mhm.
I think I accidentally found a group of people that dig the same stuff and have the same kind of vibe. But I still feel, and this is it comes to the crux of probably just my personality. I still feel on the outside of that.
Hmm.
Like I feel like when I look at the Codenamers group and I look at the people who play Codenames and the people that come back on Codenames, they're people I like, and I see them all as being friends with each other, and I'm still like, I would also like to be your friend, but it's cool if you just want to hang out and play this game instead of being my friend. Uh, and so yeah, I feel like I've built a community that I still don't see myself being part of,
Yeah.
which is which has got to be wrong.
Yeah,
That can't
well,
possibly be true. But
fundamentally, I didn't want to immediately jump down your throat and say that's bullshit. I wanted to, validate your feelings about it first, uh, and
but
then
yeah,
say,
that's
but that's bullshit. But
yeah. It's always been my biggest issue. It's always been that I always feel a little bit on the outside. So I don't know where that's from. I remember Mike Birbiglia does. He has a stand up special called "Sleepwalk with Me." This is he's made a movie too, but the audio of his one man show called
Mm.
"Sleepwalk with Me." At one point, he's like talking to his dad, and he's like, "I've been feeling like a little disconnected from everybody, a little distance, and like everybody that I know and love are just a little bit further away." And his dad says, "Yeah, that's what getting older is." And
Mm.
I was just like, "Oh man, I hope that's not true." And it fucking feels so true. It's
Yeah.
like I said, for the last couple of days, I've been like really worried about the podcast in general, because the more I think of it, I'm just like, I don't know if I have any friends, and
Mm.
I know I do,
Yeah.
but I don't. It doesn't feel like it a lot of the time
Well,
because
it's a different friendship now, right? Like,
yeah,
one thing that I find is this idea of like when when you had friends, whether it was in grade school or university, or even when you're like in your 20s, it's like you have these, first of all, you have these like set times where you're going to see them pretty much
yeah,
every day, right? You're in class or you're whatever it is. And then you have less responsibilities, so you're able to socialize in a way that
hmm
you could go out to $2 beer Tuesdays or whatever it was, and like not worry about it. And now, you know as you get older and responsibilities pile up, and then families start building and careers start building and all these things, and it's like priorities shift, and to me, this is kind of one of the central realizations of the show, is that it's like, to me, that doesn't mean it's worse friendships. It's just that friendship changes, right? And I think
yeah,
it gets harder to uh you no longer get the same type of friendship validation that you used to, so you have to look for it in different ways, which is hard. It's like where you have to like develop like neuroplasticity, right? And you have to like
Well, yeah, because it's like the reaching out instinct
Mhm,
is not there either, because it's like
exactly.
if I go on a stretch and I'm feeling lonely, it's like yeah, I have friends I could call, but I don't want to bother them.
Exactly, right? And it's like, but it's like it's not a bother is the thing. Like,
But
because
sometimes it is. That's my thing. I'm so
yeah.
worried because it's like because I don't want I my biggest fear, and the reason why I don't call is because it's like, oh hey, yeah, I'm feeling lonely, just want to talk, just want to
Yeah,
do stuff, and then as soon as that hangs up, they turn to the wife or the husband or the
sure.
roommate or the friend and go, this fucking guy drains me, man.
you know, you know, you are, Tim. You are literally speaking my language, and I want to say, in my experience with that stuff, especially over the last, I'd say, like probably about the last year or so, what I've really come to cherish in reframing those thoughts has been like almost like deciding that that's none of my business. Like it's like do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean by
No,
that though? Like, okay,
no.
so it's like this idea that like, because to me, like, and I think we could probably link this with, we're both neurodivergent and we both,
Hmm.
carry a lot of, with that. It's not that people who are neurodivergent inherently come with trauma. It's that more often than not, socially speaking and culturally speaking, people who are neurodivergent have experienced types of internalized, whether it's internalized, externalized, whatever, they've experienced trauma that has then informed how they show up. And that develops things like people pleasing, that develops things like hypervigilance, that develops these things of like, oh, I'm going to make sure you're okay long before I ever even check in with myself, right? And part of my own kind of, it feels really cheesy to call it like my healing journey, or like, but like just part of my
Yeah.
redevelopment and part of my kind of rebraining, has been to be like, okay, to my face, someone says, happy to talk to you, happy to lend you support. They hang up. From that moment on, A, because I'm ADHD and so I have no object permanence. So they hang up, they don't exist to me anymore. But, you know, but also anything past that is no longer my business because they're a fucking adult. And if they can't communicate their needs, that's not my problem. You know, like that's on them to communicate. So if they had a problem with me, they should have said that, you know? And so like I can't be fixated on placating their unspoken needs, right? I'm not a mind reader. So like either speak up or get fucked, you know?
Yeah, I think my issue, and where that falls apart for me,
Mhm.
is my issue isn't did they not communicate their stuff. My issue is when are they going to cut ties? When are they
Right.
going to be done? And it's like I already feel like I don't have any friends, and so you set a task for this podcast, and just because it goes right into this,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, if you've got anything you want to talk about friendship questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, my third question that I wrote down, and I'm like, hey, if we get to this, I'll ask it. But this is exactly what it is.
Spit it.
Um, do you? And it sounds like no from you. You sound like you have a very healthy mindset. But do you maintain bad friendships to pad the numbers?
Oh, not a chance. Not anymore, at least. Yeah, not
No.
anymore. But I'm coming out of like a friendship apocalypse from
Yeah.
like the end of last year. Like I
Yeah.
basically like it was like a bloodbath. Like I had maybe like 1,000 followers on like my personal Instagram, and I whittled it down to like 200. And only recently have started sort of letting people back in, you know. Um and I recognize that that's one step removed because that's still like internet friends and like, you know, people I went to high school with and haven't spoken to in 20 years and kind of shit like that. But the last sort of like big wave of like losing friends was not willing, you know. Yeah, I wasn't a willing thing. It was like I got kind of excised. um you know, that's up to different interpretations depending on who you're talking to, but
Was it a breakup? It was a breakup, right?
it was a breakup and then all the friends went with, right, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. She in my breakup too. She got all the friends.
Yeah, right, you know,
Yeah.
which happens, which is like that's fine, you know. It's just that it's like it would have been great if none of them had said like, don't worry, we're your friend too, you know, like, and then just never replied back to me. But the thing about all that, what that taught me was that it was like, oh, they were never my friend to begin with, you know. So me constantly reaching out and constantly trying to reconnect is me trying to reconnect with a stranger, or even worse than that, a fantasy, somebody who never existed, you know. So now I'm in a stage where I'm like, no, I've got like maybe 4 friends like in town who I like actively see on a regular basis. And then I've got like a slightly larger group past that, online, you know, distance people. And beyond that, it I just don't have the capacity to maintain more connections, you know? So like I'll be friendly with people, but I'm not going to put in the effort to for somebody who isn't reciprocating, you know? And I think that does kind of go hand in hand with this idea of like what friendships used to be versus what friendships are now for me, which is this idea that like it used to be, how many friends do I have? What's my body count? You know, like what, you know, how many followers, whatever it is. And now it's like, do I feel safe with this person? And do I feel unquestionably connected to this person? And if there's even like a shred of doubt, I tend to just retreat, you know? And that's a trauma response, and it's not necessarily the healthiest response long term. But right now, that's where I'm at, where I'm like, no, my fucking circle are my fucking people that I never question, you know. And at the same time too, if questions do come up, they're the kind of people who I feel safe to address it with, you know, because there's that level of connection where it's like,
Mm.
ooh, this feels off, but I don't think I can actually talk to you about it, which to me is like, oh, that's because they're not a friend. You know, like, so like,
That does make sense.
right. we need to bring back, like, I think one thing that was lost in, like, the pandemic, or maybe earlier, I don't know, maybe it's because of Facebook, who knows, but, like, we need to bring back the acquaintance, or the, like,
Yeah, I'm
the
worried that's all I've
colleague.
got, James.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, I mean, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, you know? It's not, right? Like, because these aren't bad people, right? These aren't
No, they're
these are
great. Everybody in my life's amazing. Yeah.
exactly, right? And that's the other thing. I wanna be sure I'm not painting, like, anybody who's out of my circle is a monster, It's like, no,
But they are. But I
well,
understand. Yeah,
sure, yeah. But there's colleagues and there's acquaintances. Like, not everyone has to be your bestie, And
yeah.
I think that's what I'm coming out of, is that I used to be like, all my friends are my best friend. And it's like, no, 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 no. Most of them are actually deeply unwell and actually borderline unsafe, and like, should be trusted about as far as you can throw them. And
Mhm.
I'm not a very strong person, so they're not going far. But what do you think? I mean, I'm really fascinated to hear, because, like, I'm not somebody who's like, my way is the right way, Like, this is just sort of from personal experience, and
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your perspective on, like, what makes you. You know what? Actually, this ties right into this core question of friendship, and I think that's where we should dive into. Is let's get to the root of it. To you, what does it mean to be a friend? And so when you're saying, "Oh, I have acquaintance versus friend," like, what would it be to be a friend?
I think my biggest issue is I don't think I know, and I don't think I've ever known.
Mm,
I was a military kid, so my dad was in
okay.
the military, and we moved around a lot. So also I am a media whore. I love everything that has to do with entertainment and pop culture.
Fuck yeah.
So while I am leaving everybody I know every 3 to 4 years to move to a completely different place and start all over again, I'm watching shows like Boy Meets World
Yeah.
and basically every other TV show where these are people that have known each other since they were toddlers.
Mhm.
Friendships. There's always that person that they've known for the last 25 years, and they're only
Mhm.
26 years old.
Right.
And so for like watching all these things where it's like these people that have these bonds where it's like it's almost familial
Mhm.
because of how long they've known each other and how much they've gone through.
Mhm.
And at no point in my life have I known somebody for more than 4 years, and
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that I are my favorite people and I think are really great friends, but yeah, like I've known my kids longer than I've known anybody else in my life, which is like
Yeah.
a weird thing, right? Other than my family. So it's like other than my ex, who arguably I haven't been friends with for a while. So it's like yeah, so it's like my kids are older than any relationship I've maintained,
Wow.
which is so I I don't know if it's that I feel like I should have something different. Like I feel like I've
Mm.
missed out because again, my example for everything is like these TV shows and these movies
Yeah.
where you're watching like you watch The Hangover and it's just three guys that have known each other for their whole lives, and it's like I don't know if I have that connection with anybody, and even when even with friends where it felt like we were getting close to them, like Evan Abrams is one of my best friends. But even Evan is like we've known each other for a long time, but he's got actual best friends. He's
Mm.
got 4 or 5 guys that he's grown up with that he's known from three. So even there, it's like, well, you're not actually, I'm not part of that.
Mm.
So so I don't know if what a friend is to me matches what I think a friend is supposed to be because there's
Mm.
like a lot of definitions where it's
Sure.
like if I woke up tomorrow and like said I like, hey, I really need something, or I'm feeling really bad, or let's go do something, or
Mhm.
anything like that, there's 5 or 6 people that I can call that will drop everything to hang out with me. So I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
from that definition of things, I've got a friend.
Yeah.
But I don't. have anybody in my life who can call me on my bullshit
Sure.
in the
Yeah.
way that it's like I knew you before, because
Right.
nobody's known me before, and in any stage of my life, no one has ever known me before.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah. So I feel on the outside on a lot of things for because of that.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like is, I don't know, just a built-in person who's like, yeah, yeah, no, you're gonna be yeah, let's be roommates. Let's yeah, let's talk every day. Let's join a fucking baseball league. Let's fucking and yeah, and I I don't have that. So
Yeah.
again, it's, I think, is it a grass is always greener thing? Like, I have incredible friends who are incredible all the time.
Yep.
Uh but it but I feel lonely a lot. And so
Yeah.
it's yeah, yeah. I think my issue is I don't know what a friend is.
Mm. I mean, I am so fascinated by like you really put me in this I always call it the spider web brain of like it, you make these beautiful statements that suddenly like fracture my brain. And I think part of it is obviously part of it is ADHD, but it's like it's this idea of like the influence of media on what a friend should be, then creating these like feelings of inadequacy in us because we're I agree. I was raised on Boy Meets World. I always wanted a Sean Hunter. You know what I mean? And I never and I'm in the same boat. I didn't move around as much, but I through grade school I was basically in a new group of friends every year, like every grade, new friends because the last ones were like, get this fucking weirdo out of here, he's, it's grade 9 and he's still talking about Superboy, like get him out, um, and I wonder if, the reason I like this question is because it is so open-ended. It's really like deceitfully simple, right? Like is that the right way of putting it? It looks simple when really it can be really complex. And I'm much more interested in like what it feels like for you, And so like,
Mm.
you know, what a friend should be because of fucking TGIF or because of fucking Disney Channel or because of fucking My Girl or some shit. That stuff can kind of get fucked. You know what I mean? Because like I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I eat, sleep, breathe movies, video games, books, half my communication is quotes, you know, and at the same time too, I've recognized actually an ex once pointed out that like my quoting is sort of like my stimming, and they would often actually get really upset when I started quoting because they'd be like, this means you're dysregulated, this means you're actually uncomfortable about something and you're disassociating, and um um so I'm really curious about, yeah, the personal take, the internal take, the like and whether or not you have it is one thing, but like what would what could someone do to be a better friend to you or a good friend to you? And like from
I
personal, like fuck the movies,
I think it's I think it's showing it's showing up
Mhm.
unannounced. I don't mean like at my door, but like like just like unannounced.
Yeah.
The best feeling I've gotten in the last couple of years, and it's a couple of times because he's incredible. But Sam Norton
Mm.
is a friend of mine out of Toronto, comedian, and he literally is one of those. Hey, I thought about you today. Wanted to check in and say hi, and it's a text
Yeah.
out of nowhere, and it's just like, because I spend a lot of time. It comes up a lot on your podcast and
Mhm.
in the world, but but it's you, and it's usually like to make yourself feel better, where
Mm.
it's like, hey, don't worry what other people think about you, because they don't.
Yeah.
Uh, but the other side of that is, don't worry about people thinking about you, because they don't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sitting in that and going, hey, I bet right now nobody is thinking of me,
Mm.
is not a great place to sit in.
It's a really lonely thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And so every once in a while, where somebody just like, hey, by the way,
Yep.
which is why a lot of people, a lot. God, I'm saying all these cliche things like a lot of people. Like it's like what do you mean a
Many
lot of people? What does that
many
even mean?
people
Trump?
yeah, many people are saying.
So many, all the people. uh, but I often hear about all the bad things about social media and how it's just a time waster and all these things. But there is nothing better than getting an Instagram post where somebody shared a meme to you,
Oh, yeah.
where it's just like, I don't care about this meme so much, but you thought of me.
Yes.
And it was a big thing. We used to, my ex and I, before we broke up when we were together, she was really big into getting people birthday cards, and
Mhm.
I was always one of those people where I'm like, oh, get the gift, the card's not that important or whatever. Like, who cares about cards? You just throw those out anyway. Uh, and then, I think at one point somebody just got me a card, but it wasn't like a birthday card. It was like just out of nowhere. It was just a card,
Yeah.
and it like they handed it to me. They had written something in it, and the feeling of importance when you know that first they had to think of you, and even if they thought of you at the drugstore, this is still $5 and 5 minutes that they did not need to spend.
Mhm.
And so it's those little things that
Mhm.
like nothing's better. Showing up to a party, and like if I know you're going to be there,
Yeah.
and then if I show up and I'm like, oh, I brought some beers for me and all this, and also, oh, here's a Wonder Bar because I know you fucking love peanut butter Wonder Bars. That's your favorite thing.
Yeah.
I saw it, thought of you, grabbed it, brought it to you.
Magic.
There's just something special about, and I think the magic of it is it's in the nonchalance of it.
Yeah.
It's not an event. It's not you don't make it. It's not a theatrical
Mhm.
presentation. It's not a big deal. It's really a throwaway where it's just
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, saw this. I know you like this. Got this for you, and that's it. Nobody's looking for a thank you. Nobody's making a production out of it. And yeah, so like that meme culture, the text stuff, uh, and then I go into a shame spiral after that
Of course, always.
because I'm like, oh, he's probably reaching out because he really needs somebody,
Right.
and I don't have the energy to help somebody right now because I'm pretty low myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the double edged sword of the people who reach out. So a
Always.
lot of people, again, a lot of people, all the people I hear often,
Yeah.
and it's like, make sure you reach out, man. Reach out. Just reach
Yep.
out. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're reaching out, I also assume that you need a helping hand. And in those moments, I'm usually not
Yeah.
capable of helping. And then
Yep.
I feel worse. Uh,
You know,
but I do get that buzz where I'm just like, oh, you did think someone does think of me.
it's magic. It's magic. There's nothing better than I agree wholeheartedly. Actually so funny. It was shared as a meme from a friend of mine, um, about this like concept of I think it's called something like pebbling. And I
Yeah.
wanna say
Yeah.
it's like
That's all it
prose,
is.
right? Yeah, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like just tiny little things of like, "Hey, I thought of you." Just a sparkly little thing, you know? And it's magic, and it's like it it could be so simple, but it is so impactful, you know? And I think that that's to me, that's actually really the core of a friendship, maybe of the show, maybe of just like what I'm after, I don't know, but it's like I'm with you. It's like I don't want these big, huge, grand gestures. I just want almost like blasé, you know, like just little bits here and there, you know.
Yeah. How quickly do you become a friend?
Mm. That is such a good question because that is something that I am really exploring lately. I, I wish I had a stronger answer for it. I think for me, it's I don't know if it's necessarily a timeline thing. I think it's more of like a what am I feeling thing, and that changes person to person. But I think what it breaks down to is like when do I feel safest with this person? And like how soon do I feel safe with this person? And that doesn't necessarily mean like can I trauma dump on this person? You know, you know, like it's more about just like it's those feelings, you know, that we've been talking about, those feelings of like being unsure, those feelings of insecurity. It's like when I'm in a place with someone where those questions, they're not necessarily gone, but they're quieter, you know? And I think that it comes from like a shared a shared sharing, you know, you know, if this person is demonstrating that they're feeling safe with me, they're talking about stuff that they might not be comfortable with, you know, I'm comfortable to share with them. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a timeline so much as like a behavior thing for me. And I think that's what it really boils down to, is these feelings of like, and funny enough, I think it comes back from some like potential behaviors I'm trying to address, not negatively, but like, you know, stuff I'm trying to shift, of things like, oh, this person's showing me they're safe, so that must mean that I'm safe, you know, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm watching off of their behavior more often than not. Um, but I think it also loops back to things like you were talking about like when somebody starts like unprompted sharing stuff to me, you know, maybe I met, you know, a friend through a friend, and we've now connected and they're starting to share stuff with me, you know, or we're starting a chat, something like that. I think it's, yeah, it's behavioral. um and one reason I'm personally being really mindful of like time stuff is because I have had the habit in the past of like speed running these things and being like, we've hung out once and we got along that one time, so obviously we're best friends, so like here's all my trauma, and here's the name of the first dog who I owned who died, and you know, and like just blah, right. And I'm just being much more mindful of like parsing that stuff out, you know. um and letting it happen naturally, because it will if you just let it, you know, and not force those things. Um but yeah, I in the past I've been like, it's almost like the old cliche of like, when can you sleep with a date? It's like, you know, third hangout and now we're best friends, you know. Like but
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I get, I think you talk a lot about yeah. Now that I feel safe, here's all my stuff. I
mhm.
don't talk about my stuff to anybody, so that's
Mm,
never been my thing.
mhm.
But like I think I do this in all relationships, but I fall quickly.
Mm, mhm.
It and but like yeah, if the vibe's right, I'm like, hey, look, dude, I've been doing this for a long time. I know what this is. I know this
Yep.
feeling. Let's just go.
Mhm.
But that's usually just, hey, now that we're friends, we should like hang out all the time now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, it's like when it's not reciprocated, it's like, oh man, did I read that wrong?
Yes.
And then it's like, no, you didn't read it wrong. I'm an adult person with responsibilities.
Yes.
We can't hang out every night. No, I can't go to the thing on Thursday,
Yep. Yep.
which is really bad. Like I get those feelings, but also I'm busy as fuck.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't so it's one of those things where it's like, "Oh man, we should hang out all the time. Are you available in these very specific windows?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh man, I don't have any friends."
Literally, right? Well, so this is another element of something I wanted to ask you about, and it ties in so perfectly about like, it's something I've been really trying to navigate, especially with, you know, with the podcast coming back, with my writing practice coming back. You know, like for the front half of the year, I was putting out an episode a week plus a newsletter every week, and like on top of like other creative projects, and then on top of like a job, and like trying to like
Weekly newsletters
socialize, right?
sounds awful.
It's monstrous. It's I'm never gonna do it again. Never, ever, ever. Sign up on the Substack. It's free. Every 2 weeks, minimum, or sorry, maximum, I should say. Probably more like monthly. But anyway, um, links are in the show notes. I burnt myself the fuck out. Right, took a summer break, and now that it's all coming back, you know, I spent the last 3 months like socializing and dating and like enjoying my life, and now all these things are coming back, and I'm like, uh-oh, I haven't seen a friend in a month, you know? And um I'm curious about how you navigate that stuff. I'm half of me really wants to unpack like how you do what you do because I'm so fascinated and I'm like really uh what's the right word I'm looking for? Like I am really impressed by what you've built and it's like
That's sweet.
you feel like someone I'd like to emulate or like, follow in the path of, for the stuff you're working on. And so there's a part of me that's like, tell me your secrets. But also like I think just on a personal level, like how are you finding navigating balancing that stuff? Because you mentioned already this idea of like dedicated time and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't have any friends, and I'm not dating anybody.
Fair,
Uh,
okay.
to be fair, it's not the friends thing. We the friend stuff I do, like I purposefully go out of my way to schedule that stuff, but I'm not dating anybody. And
Right.
this might be a pessimistic outlook on relationships and girlfriends and wives in general. But I have been able to do a whole bunch of stuff because I don't have somebody upset at the things I choose to do.
Mm,
And so that helps
mhm.
because yeah, we joke about this a lot around me and the people who knew my relationship in the past. But it's like none of this would exist if I was still with my ex,
Sure.
because everything I do is silly and unimportant. And so all of this silly and unimportant stuff wouldn't happen.
Mm.
Yeah, you know what? I'll brag for a couple of seconds.
Please do.
Uh, so yeah, the show it's based on a game from a renowned company, and then after the first season, they reached out and they said we need to talk about your show. And so I called Evan and the rest of the team, and I said, I'm taking a meeting with CGE. We may need to work on new graphics because we might be doing spy words live on Thursday.
Yep.
Uh, and then, because yeah, the cease and desist is coming.
Yep.
And then we met with CGE, and they're like, "This is amazing. It's awesome, and we want to support it." And through that, I work with them a lot. No idea when this is coming out, but the weekend that we recorded this, I'm going to be in Toronto with CGE for an event. They brought me to Gen Con for an event, and we're talking about doing another Codenames Live episode. They want to do two a month. We can do more or less, but they want to do it on their channel, whether it be on YouTube or Twitch,
Fuck
and it be
yeah.
like their own thing. It'll be a paid thing, and then there's also talks. We're also having a discussion on other opportunities with CGE that I could be helpful with.
Mhm.
And so there's that. Because of Codenames Live, I've been able to tinker around with Nerd and Correct, which is a brand of mine that
Mhm.
I want to do stuff with. And so, like you were saying, the amount of stuff I do, my weekly schedule is Monday nights we do Codenames Live, the new class. Tuesday, well, not this one because we're recording on a Tuesday and we're doing this, but usually I would record the Nerd Incorrect podcast, which is a weekly podcast that would be done today. I've already posted in the Discord that I've got more important things to do. There won't be a podcast tomorrow.
Goddamn right.
uh, Wednesdays I have off. There's nothing that happens for Wednesday except that the podcast drops on Wednesday. So it's recorded Tuesday night. It drops on Wednesday.
Mhm.
And then Thursday is the main cast episode of Codenames. And then Friday, also nothing happening.
Mm.
And then Saturday uh, is board game day
Mm.
or grandma and grandpa, depending on if the kids are here.
Gotcha.
And board game day happens because it's time with friends. That's when like, this is like, we go all day and we meet up at Sam's condo party room
Yep.
and we bring board games and we just hang out all day. So like that's where I get my fill, and they know that it's happening. Plus, I get my fill. My best friends are on the show on Thursdays, so it's like I
Sure.
also see them online every Thursday.
Mhm.
And then Sunday is usually some kind of recoup day. But there's also during the month, I've got to write the newsletter because we drop the Nerd and Correct newsletter every month. And I used to do a podcast called The Adventures We Have from Inside the House. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. it's also the first thing that had to go because it is the most draining and time consuming thing I ever
Gotcha.
did.
Okay.
And that is my trick.
Mm.
Everything I do is the easiest it could possibly be.
Mm.
Oh,
Mhm.
I left out. I my kid and I also do a Patreon exclusive show
I was gonna say,
called
yeah,
Reality TV. Yeah,
yeah.
and that one we that one's a little bit easier. It's a TV trick. We set up the living room, and then we'll watch 4 or 5 episodes of something, and then that gets cut up into individual episodes that drop weekly.
But
So
what's amazing is that you've like built this work schedule around socializing. You know, like so
yeah,
you're cheat coding it in a way of like getting both in one. You know.
yeah. Yeah, if I ever start dating somebody, my kid's going to be mad because they're not going to be on the reality TV show anymore.
You just have to start a new show on Wednesdays or something. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, like maybe I start dating somebody, they can be my mod. We can. That's how we'll hang out. They'll
Yeah,
moderate the.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
get rid of Sam.
yeah.
He'll be relegated to board game days. Yeah. But yeah, yeah. So the trick for me is that everything is as simple as possible. Code names. Oh, that's what I do. That's what I do on Wednesdays. And the reason that I forgot about it is because it's only 20 minutes out of my day. So on Wednesdays, I go to my computer. I open up my Codenames files. I grab everybody's pictures. I grab everybody's names. I throw them into the promos. I throw them into the intros and the extras for the show. All of those are templated out. I spent 4 or 5 days creating all of those things once and built
Mm,
them in a way where I just have to replace pictures and stuff. And
mhm.
so all promotion and all the graphics for the show, 20 minutes on a Wednesday.
Done.
And then I hit export and they're good to go. And so because Codenames is live, uh, there's no other than the pre-production and then doing the actual show. After that, I save to YouTube, which gets fed to the playlist in my Patreon. Because if
Mm,
you're at the $5 level, you get access to the past episodes, and so that's how they get them. It's
mhm.
unlisted YouTube links of the
Love it.
entire show. There's no editing either, which I think I should probably cut off the 5 minutes of the waiting room at the beginning, but whatever. You can skip ahead.
Exactly.
Uh,
Like, yeah.
Reality TV is hanging out with my kid watching a show that we were going to watch anyway, and because it goes into the Patreon, it's also uncut, so it's in, out, and then export and then throw up on Patreon. The Nerd and Correct podcast is a stream of consciousness podcast. On
Mm.
Tuesday, I sit down, hit record, and then I talk for 45 minutes, and
Yep,
then I hit stop, and it takes me 15 minutes to get it up on Patreon, ready to go the next day.
yep.
But yeah, the only thing that ever took time was the thing that I was proudest of. Like I said, there's a podcast called The Adventures We Have from Inside the House, and that was it was a difficult one because I had to write it and then I would record it, and then that one would be edited heavily to make sure that it flowed well, the pacing was well. I got rid of my big fat person breaths because I breathe a lot while I record. And so I had to get all the out of there while you're doing the thing.
Yep.
And those were great because I wanted to do famously for anybody who listens to that podcast, the whole idea was it's an entertainment pop culture podcast, but it's not a review show. So if I'm
Mm.
talking about something, I'm talking about the cultural impact or the reasoning behind it, or how things can be affected by it or why it's
Mm.
there. So there's episodes like a lady something weird and a lady cop solve crime is my favorite genre of television. And it's like, and I told that to somebody once, and they're like, "That's what is that, like 2 shows?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
contraire,
yeah,
that's like 78 shows.
yeah.
There's 3 of those being released this season."
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
tried and true trope, and it rules.
yeah, it's amazing. And so then I talk about that trope, why it works, why it doesn't. I was working on another one called uh, uh, the Sherlock syndrome,
Mm.
where it's these shows where there's this one person who helps solve crimes, and he's like so weird and bizarre that he solves them all. But the dangers of it, of course, like the reason why those ones aren't as good as Lady Cop and Something Weird, is that the Sherlock type ones, rely on the investigators not being good at their job.
Mm. Mhm.
So it's like you watch like The Mentalist or you watch something else where it's just like, no, those cops,
Would be
they
fine.
also need to be good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the thing about House. It's like, how many seasons can you have people be like, "You're a loose cannon, House. We don't believe you." You know, and
Exactly.
it's like how many fucking tumors did he take out last week? You know, like.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I love that podcast because
Mm.
it lets me explore everything, and it's also the reason why it wasn't successful and why it's not marketable, is because you can't. How do you pitch that? It's like, oh, there's one episode about this. There's one that's talking about how uh, Emperor's New Groove is the best Disney movie. There's another one about
Ooh.
Richard Frederick Bachman books
Yep. I mean,
that
it's
is
pop
like,
culture exploration.
yeah,
There's a market there. What are you talking about?
yeah, for sure. But again, that took up a lot of time. Like
Yeah, okay.
writing one episode was like 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Recording the episode is like an hour or two.
Yeah.
Editing it is like 2 or 3 hours to get it
Nightmare.
right.
Yeah.
And then and especially with our types of brains, and the rest of the time, it was good at the beginning because it was COVID.
Mhm.
Work didn't really know what was going to be happening, and I run a video production studio. So for a long time, even when we were back at work, there was nothing to do
Right.
at home. And then and then all of a sudden, and I also was in better shape then, and so it was easier to stay awake
Yeah.
because you didn't have like fat people syndrome where you're just like I need a nap because I had a sandwich and like uh, oh I had potato salad, I'm in
Yep.
trouble.
Yep. Oh,
uh,
game over.
I w- I don't have any more energy to put into things, so I had a lot more energy before, and so it was like let's go. But then it's like as Nerd and Correct got bigger,
Mhm.
some things had to fall away, and it was always going to be the stuff that took the worst.
Yeah.
That being said, like you said, the stuff that stayed was always the ones about connection. The Nerd
Mhm.
and Correct podcast is because there are people who follow me and they go into the Discord and they do live listens of it where they listen
Yeah.
and they'll comment to me as if they're live.
I'm like, I don't want to say shocked, but like I'm just so impressed by like the community that you built, because like, I'll come on the
It's
show.
crazy.
It's amazing, and like, and they're so engaged, and they know, like, they know what they're talking about, and they're
Yeah.
like, they're just, yeah, it's a community that I have never been actively a part of before.
It's I've always been jealous of communities like
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
And so to like I'm on tenterhooks all the time. I'm just
Yeah.
like I delicate. I'm like Lenny. I'm like I don't want to crush the
The
baby.
bunny, yeah.
Because again, it still feels like a really fragile ecosystem.
Mm.
Because again, we've got 9 seasons. We've done over 450 episodes, and which is stupid. Nobody,
It's amazing.
this should not have 450 episodes of it. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Uh, but it's this community, and we're trying to figure out how to grow this because it's a it's a very strong community, but it's
Mhm.
not a large one. So
Mm.
it's like we have 30 people that I can say are in this community,
Yeah.
but they are in it. They've
Oh,
been
yeah.
in it for 5 years, and
Mhm,
they watch every episode,
mhm.
and they don't go away.
Yeah.
We've got when I when I listen to podcasts with my friends, I always want to hear them say my name. So I'm gonna do that.
Shout 'em
Daniel,
out.
Stupid Monkey, Janathi, who's always in there. Lindsay's always in there. And we've got a lot of other people. We've got like Dichotic and
Mhm.
Peter Middow from Australia. They watch all the time.
Yep.
And I'm missing a whole bunch of people. I shouldn't have started mentioning people.
Yeah, you fucked up. You're gonna get
Yeah,
called
all
out
these
for
other
it.
people that I didn't mention are gonna be like, "What the
Yeah.
fuck? What
But
about
that is
me?"
but that is something that's so magic about those kinds of communities, is that something I've really grown to cherish is, yeah, I don't have a massive group of listeners, but the listeners I do have are really engaged, and it means so much more to me. I would
Yeah,
way rather one really engaged listener than 100 like just flippant once in a while, no engagement
it's
anything,
got to be at least 5. That if it's
Yeah.
just one, they're weird, and
Well, you know what I
that's
mean,
not
though.
fun.
Like, it's like I'd like one. it's to me, it's the 1 to
I
100 ratio, right?
the 30 people who watch every episode
Mhm.
are like
They enjoy it.
we have like 2,500 people who follow us on
Mhm.
Twitch. So and
Mhm.
they'll pop in every once in a while. But the important people to me is like like I said, like I'm forgetting a bunch of people now because we're on the spot.
Yeah.
But the people that you notice aren't there. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm on the stream and they'll be like, it's been a long time since I saw that person's name. Like,
Mhm.
I wonder if they're okay or what's going on. But yeah, you've got this crew so much so that we made baseball jerseys
Yeah.
that you have to order, and you get like something you can put stuff that you want on your back. And we're like, oh, we'll probably there's some hardcore people in the chat, and so we'll probably get about 10 of these. And yeah, I think in total there's 32 of those baseball jerseys out in the wild now,
Love it.
or will be once this next order goes out. And yeah, it's like we're not a huge community. Most people still haven't heard of us, but yeah, we've got those people that are like when I show up at conventions and stuff. Like when I went to Gen Con, I had people show up and I'm like, hey, I'm part-time fairies. That's me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I know exactly who you are because
Yep.
you're in the chat. And so that's magical where you're just like, there's these regular, ordinary people that are there. And
Mm.
then the other thing that makes me feel real good about the show and why it's like, I think I have friends. Maybe they're my friends. But it's this idea that I do this show and it's all entertainers and all of us know don't leave the house for free.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do something, get paid for it. I don't have a budget for that, and so I'm like, this will be the year where I ask people to be on the show, and they'll be like, show me the money.
Right.
uh, but everybody comes back,
Mhm.
and they do it for free, and I'm like, there's clearly something magical here. I don't know how to show it to more people,
Mm.
but with the amount of people, the caliber of people that are like, yeah, let's do this. I mean, like, fucking John Catucci's coming back.
Yeah.
It's like if I get Keith Law, the sports writer, he's coming on the show because he heard it was fun.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean,
like,
who doesn't love just spending a couple hours playing a board game? Like
and
it's
that's how we
great.
sell it too,
Mhm.
because people are like, oh, how do you get all these people on? I'm like, well, because like if you saw the email I send,
Mhm.
it's just like, dude, this is just a chill hang.
Yep.
That's all it is. We can promote stuff for you if you would like. We can talk about your stuff. We can also not talk about your stuff. We like the whole idea. We like Taskmaster. We
Good.
like that idea where there's people on screen.
Mhm.
They do something. They're famous for something, and they're talented at the thing they do. Uh, but we're gonna watch you just watch them be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they do is irrelevant, and if we didn't tell you, it wouldn't matter because at the end of the show, we want you to love them and want to support them no matter what it is they do.
Mm.
Nothing makes me feel better than when somebody has watched the show and then later finds out that person is a comedian and then goes to their show, or
Yep.
finds out later that they were on a TV show and then I hear in the Discord that they've binged that person's TV show. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's what makes Taskmaster beautiful, which by the way, I have an episode of that on my podcast,
Oh.
on why that's the best public appearance that you can do. And it's because it's not promoting anything, it's promoting you. Like if you go on Conan and you talk about your movie,
Yeah.
people might become a fan of your movie. If you go on Taskmaster and you do it right, it doesn't anything you do for the rest of your career, you're going to get support because people love you. And so
Mhm.
that's the vibe we're trying to get with the show. I hope that resonates, and also greedily, I want these people to remember my name and think of me as a friend too. Do you tie your self-worth to friendship in any way?
Fundamentally, yeah. And that's actually and that's something that I'm very much like trying to address, right? And sometimes like I forget what the saying is, but it's sometimes like sometimes you don't really know yourself until somebody shows it to you. And I find in listening to you, I'm hearing a lot of my own internal thoughts, these things of like, do I have friends? Am I connected? Because from the outside, I look at you and I'm like, you're beloved, like everybody on the show is having such a blast. You're so charismatic. Like it's such a joy for me to be a part of it, like, you've been sending me out these little like invites to the be like a replacement for some of the shows, and it's always like such a pleasure, um so it's like hearing your your internal thoughts vocalized, and realizing how much I recognize it in myself, um definitely is like part of my continued, I've been calling it my rebraining, right? And because I know in the past I've definitely linked like, well, I'm friends with this person and this person's cool, so that must mean I'm kind of like tangentially cool, um and what I've really been focusing on is like, it's all, it's that, part of it is the reparenting and kind of processing through old thoughts, and then part of it is just that real, like, that unconditional self-love, unquestioning self-love, right? Which is really fucking hard. It's really fucking hard to be like, yeah, but, and it's like, no, no, unquestioning. It's unconditional, right? There's nothing you can do to make you unloved, right? And that takes so much practice, and that takes so much like mindful, active reminder and reinforcement, that it's like, if somebody likes you, that's lucky for them. That doesn't mean anything about your value. You know what I mean? And because, yeah, for the longest time, it's always been the people I'm friends with are who give me value. And so, in really mindfully and actively reducing my friend group, and instead of relying on outside people to give me that validation, but instead to give it to myself, it's been a complete life changer, and so yeah, I if you had spoken to me even a year ago, I would say fundamentally, absolutely, that's where my value comes from. And now I'm at a stage where I'm like, oh, I still very much derive personal value from that, but I am actively shifting it to be like, anything I'm lacking in or perceiving to lack in, I'm just giving it to myself instead. You know what I mean? And if I want somebody to send me a meme, I go look at memes. If I, you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
right, and it's lonely in a way, and it also is really liberating in a way, because it's like, yeah, I don't need to get that validation from anyone else, because I can always be a source of it for myself. So when people do come and go, as people do, and when life changes, as it does, I know I can trust myself to always be there and always be present with myself, right? Do I always believe that? Fuck no. But it's what I'm working on, um yeah, but that's, yeah, cuz I think it's really easy to find that validation outside and to become kind of addicted to it, right? I think that's why we're performers. I think that's why we're into these,
Mhm.
it's like that joke. Is it Mark Maron who talks about like, did you become an actor because your dad hated you, or because,
'Cause your mom
y-
loved you too much.
yeah, yeah, right, and it's like, we're so not special, right? Like, none of us are special.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's not an insult. It just means like we have a very shared experience that we could be sharing more with each other, because while we're not special, we are unique, our take on things is unique. And so it's okay to reshare the same stories if they're similar to someone else, because you have a unique take on it, right?
Mhm.
um um that leads me into the final kind of tentpole question, that I've added in this season. Um, it's this question of hope. Like, the world is so fucked right now, and everything feels so cataclysmic and like on the brink of something really fucking bad. And I think that it's okay to accept that. It's okay to not close your eyes to it, and it's also okay to recognize that, you know people have been having babies throughout all of history. Anything that's ever happened, people had kids through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of thing, right? Um, so I'm curious, from your personal experience and from, just where you're at in your day today, what is something that's giving you hope to kind of keep on getting up, keep on doing your thing?
Dear Lord. uh, uh, God, I don't know how to answer this question because I don't want to be all cliche like I've got children and they're amazing,
That's not a
but
cliche
they
at all.
are.
That's
My kids are
important.
fucking dope.
Yeah.
Uh, to the point where I get really annoyed by anybody who talks about the burden of children, and I'm like,
Mm,
"What the fuck are you talking about?"
yeah.
Like this is a you problem. You're too selfish because if you just let go, uh,
Yep.
something I learned really really early in parenthood was this. There's this knee jerk reaction. It's also where I'm always worried I'm a narcissist. Which I think might be the first sign that I'm not. I don't think narcissists worry about it too much.
That tends to be that's what my therapist has said. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm always like worried about it, so I'm always
Mm,
like checking myself
mhm.
over and over. But in early parenthood, it was like this knee jerk reaction where your 3-year-old toddles up to you while you're opening up a packet of M&Ms, and they're like, "Oh, M&Ms," and they're asking you for some, and you're like, "No, these are my fucking M&Ms," and you don't want to share your M&Ms, and you're like, "Bro, you're not gonna fucking share your M&Ms with a 3-year-old?
Yeah.
Like this is the hill you want to die on? This is this is the burden that has befallen you? What are
Yep.
you even talking about?" And then when I started seeing that, I started noticing it in a lot of other things I do. The knee
Mm,
jerk reaction to say no because I'm comfortable right now,
mhm.
where it's like, oh, I'm sitting here doing a thing, and then you've asked me to do something, and my knee jerk reaction is, you will change the quality of my time. And then I started noticing it with my friends, with my family, with my thing, where it's like, how many times does slight discomfort allow me to make someone feel bad? uh, where it's like, hey, can you, like, if my dad's like, hey, can you help me bring this sewing machine up the stairs because your mom wants to sell it on Facebook Marketplace? And the moment of like, are you kidding me? I'm just like, I just want to fucking sit and eat this thing.
Yep.
And it's like, you can get back to that.
Mm,
And imagine if you had just jumped up and said, of course, because you're going to anyway. Like it's not going to change the fact that you're going to help your friend, your dad, your kid. You're going to do it anyway. But you didn't take that moment to make them feel bad before doing it. And
yep.
so when I started noticing that in a lot of my things, I started changing. I wanted to make sure that in all interactions, I didn't add a step where I made people feel bad.
Mm,
And my kids do that now.
mm,
And my friends do that. Like the people that I spend the most time around, they've subconsciously started doing it too.
yep.
And that's where my hope for the future comes from. It's
Yeah.
not that everybody's like, a lot of people are negative, a lot of negative things happen, a lot of bad things happen, and negativity is contagious.
Oh,
But
yeah.
to watch positivity also be contagious
Mm,
is a lot more fun. Just having people realize that, hey, I don't need to make you feel bad right now.
yeah.
And I don't need these. I think now everybody's like calling microaggressions, but I think that's a separate thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's the little things. It's
Yeah.
like your slight hesitation, your knee jerk reaction to push something away. That hurts feelings. That
Yep.
hurts. That makes people feel bad. That makes people not want to reach out to you anymore.
Yep.
And then watching the culture of the people that I work with, the people, because I manage a team, and we're like that there too, where it's like,
Mm,
nobody's scared to ask for anything and have somebody grumble about it, because
mhm.
it's all like, no, no, we're all here. Also, we have a cool gig. We make videos, so
That does
it's
rule.
hard to complain.
Yeah.
So it's like, anybody who's like, oh, my job is like, what the fuck are you
Yeah.
talking about? You make movies. You like, stop,
Yeah.
stop.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, it's. I think the hope that I see is how, maybe not as quickly, maybe not as overtly, but I think more solidly. I think
Mhm.
positivity spreads more strongly than negativity does. I think
Mhm.
negativity goes quickly, but I think people don't like feeling bad, and so positivity can take root and live longer. I think that's what's
Mm.
happening.
I love that, and I would like to hope that's true.
Me too.
it feels true, but the negative in my brain is like,
Yeah, there's
but
always something
right?
bad
Oh,
around the corner.
exactly, exactly, yeah. Tim, I just have the little wrap up action question, but before I do that, like, I really do want to say, like, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean that genuinely when I say, like, you seem to me to be so beloved, and
Thank you.
you've created such a fantastic community that I feel so happy to be a part of. I feel so lucky to have been invited in, and yeah, like I said at the top, I know we don't know each other in person, but every encounter I've had with you has been just like joyful and positive and enlightening in some way, and I really, yeah, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and telling your stories and like just doing what you're doing, because I think you're phenomenal. So keep it up, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It makes me feel very, very good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah, though every time you were talking about like feeling lonely and stuff, I was feeling so kindred to it, and B, I was like, fuck, I wish I lived closer. Like,
I think that's
but
I think that's my biggest issue. And again, a real fucking problem with this
yeah,
internet and this and COVID is
yeah,
that I have met all of the people that should be in my daily,
yes.
and holy shit, are we spread across the globe?
That's the problem, isn't it? Right? And it is not cheap to fly in Canada. So,
No, it's
um,
yeah.
do you have, before we do the last question for listeners, do you have anything you want to plug? Obviously, we've talked about your show, but like, but plug it again here. Where can listeners find you? Where do you want them to go next?
Well, yeah, go to Nerd and Correct on most things, Instagram and on Twitch. There's a Codenames Live page on Facebook you can check out, but we're more active on Instagram and Twitch. Those are our places. Um, uh, if you can, and if you will indulge me, uh, my main cast on Thursdays is filled with brilliant, incredible comedians, entertainers, and influencers. And so Danielle Standring, Danny Standring, everywhere on the internet. Brendan McKeegan, he's the only one on the planet, so Brendan McKeegan is easy to find. Tavis Mapleston, Jason Hattrick, um, Sam Murdoch, obviously, Logan Avery Cooper, and Lorenzo Patino, Shannon LaHaye. These are all the most important people to me, the closest people to me. They're all struggling artists at different levels. Some are doing well, some are doing less well. But if somebody took the time to write all of those people's names down and just go find them and go look for them, they've been with me for fucking 9 seasons.
Yeah.
And again, they're not getting paid, and they weekly do this. So uh, if you have friends like that, you are a fortunate person. So
You are.
yeah, I do not want to leave the podcast without making sure that everybody knows those people are very special.
100%. I love that. It's amazingly rare, and it's something I think I want to try and cue a little bit more in future interviews. But um, trying to get shout outs to like besties, shout outs to friends, right? This is a fucking show about friendship. Let's talk about your friends, right? But I will make sure I'm gonna put all the links to all those accounts in the show notes. So
Oh God, you know
listeners,
what?
go
Let,
back
let
and
me
find them.
do the work for you. I'll email it to you so you can
I
just copy paste.
I mean, that's what I was gonna do off recording. I was gonna be like, so, but
So send me the links.
yeah, yeah. But all that will be in the show notes. So thank you very much for that. I always like to leave listeners on a little actionable step, something that they can try out. So, what do you think is one thing listeners could try doing this week to be a better friend, whether it's to themselves or to their community?
Oh well, now it feels like I just did it. I'd be a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Just be a cheerleader, and be be a secret cheerleader. You know, like how like you find out years after somebody died that they donated millions of dollars to a
Yeah.
cause,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, what a great guy, and he didn't even say anything.
Yep.
That's how you should cheer. That's how you should celebrate and be a cheerleader for your friends too.
Mm.
If somebody's got and this might be specific to the fact that we're creators and performers. Like all of my
Mhm.
friends are creators and performers, but it's like if your friend just wrote a book that's dropping next week, um, fucking don't just share their post. Just like be like, hey, this my friend Jen. I should probably get her last name. That's it. By the way, is this a thing for you as an ADHD person? I don't remember anybody's last names, and people get mad at me. It's like, how do you not know their last name? I'm like, because I don't fucking call them by their last name.
I also just don't know names. I've actually
Oh my god.
I've coined it. I name people on vibes, not on their actual names. So I'll like meet them. I'll hear their name, and I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. That's never gonna stick. Instead, you're now gonna be Steven because you feel like a Steven to me. So forevermore in my head, you're Steve, or whatever it might be. It's
Yeah.
why I know so many champs, and I know so many buds, and I know so many pals.
I am so exuberantly, hey bud. Oh,
Excited.
what's up, guy?
Oh,
Yeah.
buddy!
Hey, holy shit. I'm
Yeah,
so happy to see you. If you can skip right
you.
over it. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
exactly. I know a lot of
Uh
yous, you know?
yeah. So here's an example. She's never gonna listen to this podcast. I'm never gonna tell her about the podcast. I'm gonna tell her if she asks what's a good podcast. I'll be like Friendless Pod. I'm not gonna tell her about my episode. Is my point.
Yep.
So she has no idea. But my friend Jennifer Whiteford, she's one of my first friends who is legitimately getting published. So we've got a lot of our friends who are like they'll self-publish and then eventually get picked up by like a Doubleday or something. But Jen got picked up, and she's getting her book "Make Me a Mixtape" published, and it's going to be at Chapter. You can like go to
Fuck
bookstores,
yeah.
you can go online. It's like you can get physical copies of this. It's called "Make Me a Mixtape." Her name is Jennifer Whiteford, and it's incredible. She's incredible, and everybody should buy her book. And if you have a friend, for whatever reason, cheerlead without them knowing about it, without
Mm.
telling them, and without hoping for a thank you,
Mm.
because you should think your friends are dope anyway. It shouldn't be a favor. It shouldn't be a
Mm.
favor to cheerlead your friends.
Yeah. Go buy your friend's book. God damn it. And that's it. Thank you so much to Tim for coming on the show, sharing his stories, and showing how to organically build a community online. Be sure to check out Codenames Live, as well as everything else Tim does on Nerd Incorrect. I've included all the links in the show notes. Also, as promised, I've included all the names for the cast members of Codenames Live in the show notes as well. Give them all a follow. That team is incredible. They're hilarious. They're talented. They're just incredible people. So give them a follow. And if you want more Friendless content, be sure to subscribe to the Substack. This week, there's a brand new review for former guest Jazz Papadopoulos' book, I Feel That Way Too, and there's tons more content coming down the line. I'm actually getting really excited about everything that I've been writing and preparing, so sign up. It's free. You're going to love it. Lastly, I'm going to take a little page out of Tim's book, and I'm going to recommend everybody this week, go be someone's secret cheerleader. Buy someone's book, download their song, share their links, do what you can to get your friends' work out in the world. And if all else fails, just send them a nice meme. But that's going to do it for me this week, so I will say thank you so much, and I hope to catch you back here next week with a brand new episode. But as always, I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because that is then, and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you, and I wish you well. Fun and safety, sweeties.